Hi everyone, Aaron here for Zollotech, and this past week we heard a lot of news about the upcoming iPhone 17 with some changes maybe we didn't expect. The folding iPhone is on its way maybe next year, and we're also waiting for iOS 18.6 and the next betas of iOS 26. This is your weekly Apple News update for the week of July 28th, 2025. Now, macOS Spotlight and iOS Spotlight seem to have had a security vulnerability, and it was posted in a blog post today by Microsoft. You can see this here where it says analyzing a Spotlight-based macOS TCC vulnerability, and they go into more details. Now, the good thing is this was patched with iOS 15.4, iPadOS 15.4, and of course macOS 15.4 as well back on March 31st. But if you want to know more details about this, see how it worked, and see that they actually gave this information to Apple to get them to patch it in time, this is the sort of the backstory of the security updates we don't typically hear. So I'll link this in the description if you want to check it out. Now, the F1 movie is something that seems to be doing very well in theaters. It's passed $500 million or $500 million so far at the box office, and this is according to CNBC. I thought it was a great movie. If you like racing in F1, I thought it was pretty good overall. It sort of reminds me of Days of Thunder years ago for NASCAR, but this time around, I think this one is one of my favorite movies in recent time as far as the overall soundtrack and just the way it's put together. I was really entertained by it, and I think that's the point, but let me know what you thought of it in the comments below. Now, Blender announced this week that they're making an app for iPad Pro. iPad Pro is more than capable enough with its M4 CPU and 16 gigs of RAM to handle Blender. I would think you'd be able to at least do some basic tasks on it, and that's for 3D modeling. So they've actually announced this here where they're working on it, and of course I'll link this in the description, but you can see the initial platform where the idea will be tested is the Apple iPad Pro with Apple Pencil, followed by Android and other graphics tablets in the future. So that's something that's coming up hopefully fairly soon, maybe with iPadOS 26. We don't really have a release date, but hopefully we'll see it very, very soon. Now, many people won't even consider a car if it doesn't have Apple CarPlay. This week, BMW actually announced that they have no plans to include Apple CarPlay Ultra in future models or updates, as many manufacturers have decided not to use it. However, I think there's some confusion around this, as this does not mean you won't have Apple CarPlay like you currently do or any of the future updates. It just means CarPlay Ultra won't take over your entire dashboard. In some ways, I think this is a good move, as it's basically a standardized template where you can change the color and add your logo, and in many cases with higher end cars, I don't think it really fits, but a lot of cars definitely could benefit from this, so BMW, Mercedes-Benz, and many others have decided not to include it. Many others have decided to, such as Hyundai, Kia. We'll probably see it in other vehicles as well, but let me know what you think of it so far, and if you'd like to see maybe what CarPlay Ultra is all about, I'll see if I can maybe go to an Aston Martin dealer and try it out. Let me know in the comments below. Now, Fortnite may not be making its way back to the UK, as Epic Games has been critical of the UK Competition and Markets Authority, and they've said that Fortnite won't be brought back to the UK this year, and Epic has also said they may never be able to bring it to the UK as they're not prioritizing allowing third-party app stores and app markets. This is something we've heard from Epic Games before, where they continually complain about not being able to do things their way. However, they've had to change this in the European Union. So let me know what you think of this in the comments below. Do you play Fortnite? It's not something I personally care about on iOS, so you could play it on the PC if you want to, or other platforms, but again, let me know what you think of it in the comments below. T-Mobile's Starlink Data has officially launched this past week after being in beta for quite some time. The feature is available for subscribers to T-Mobile if you choose, and is mostly helpful if maybe you're in an area with low cell coverage or maybe no cell coverage. I've actually had the beta for a while, and typically it doesn't really turn on unless I'm maybe in an area with almost no cell coverage. So it's definitely helpful if maybe you're traveling around the country and you're in sort of remote areas. Otherwise, though, it hasn't been super helpful, but it's different than having SOS via satellite. This is actually having data via satellite through Starlink. So a great little feature if you actually can utilize it. Otherwise, maybe we'll see it roll out to other carriers soon. Today, we also learned a little bit more about what the current iMac could have been. Leaker Kosutami shared a post on X that shows how Apple had planned to originally put an Apple logo under the bottom of the display and decided against it. I actually would have liked to see it on the front of the display, but either way, it looks like they opted against it and just left it on the back of the display altogether. As far as weekly Apple deals, well, there's quite a few good ones this week, especially on MacBook Air. It's down to just $7.99 on Amazon by Apple, and for the M4 variant as well. So a really good deal there. I'll link it in the description, along with discounts on Apple Watch SE down to $299. iMac is $100 off, and MacBook Pro is up to $450 off. Along with that, of course, there's sort of a perpetual discount on AirPods Pro 2 if you've been waiting for those. However, I do expect AirPods Pro 3 maybe later this year. Now, many have been asking me about iOS 26 beta releases. In particular, if you have beta 4 re-release, why don't you see the public beta? And the reason is they're the exact same thing. So if you have beta 4 re-release that came out, you won't see public beta 1 if you've already installed it because they're the same. You'll have to wait for the next update to see the public beta for that. The same is true if you're on public beta 1, you won't see beta 4 re-release. Also, many people initially weren't able to actually install the public beta as it wasn't available for iPhone 11. If you have an iPhone 11, this released a couple days after and is now available as a public beta if you want to try it out. So just be aware you can try that out, and you can again find that in your settings. And you'll see that in settings under software update, it's now available for public beta testing, and it's just 7 gigabytes on the iPhone 11. Now, as far as other releases, well, we're all waiting for iOS 18.6. This should release any day at this point. In fact, it could release by the time you're watching this video. We don't have a specific date from Apple, but I would expect it any day and any moment at this point. iOS 26 Beta 5 is most likely next week based on previous betas. We've typically seen with new releases, iOS 18 Beta 5, for example, was then bi-weekly from Beta 4 to Beta 5. Then after Beta 5, it switched to a weekly schedule. So that's what I would expect with Beta 5 and Public Beta 2, probably next week at this point. Hopefully, though, iOS 26 Public Beta will be more stable than last year with Beta 2, as it seems to be very laggy so far. I have a full analysis on everything going over that, so be sure to check that out if you haven't already. Now, iOS 27 is also in the works and said to start development soon, according to Mark Gurman at Bloomberg. According to Gurman, the next update is said to focus more on the iPhone Fold features, but of course, normal iPhones will have similar updates as well. So we won't see that, of course, until next June, but it is something they're working on. As far as iPhone 17, well, we've heard some odd updates lately, and that has to do with the Pro models. In particular, we heard that the Pro model could have an 8 times optical zoom lens, which I think many people would appreciate. However, the same leaker had said that Apple is planning to release a dedicated button that would be on the top of the device, or maybe on one of the corners. The dummy units that we have here don't really show that at all. We basically have the same cutouts we would expect, and these are generally pretty accurate, so maybe these aren't correct this year. That would be a surprise to many people, but if they are correct, I wouldn't expect a button there. But let me know what you think about that. Maybe we'll see it, maybe we won't, but at this point, it doesn't seem likely. Also, the same leaker is saying that Apple is planning to release a dedicated Pro Camera app, or may just update the Final Cut Camera app instead. So Final Cut Camera is something that allows you to remotely use this with Final Cut Pro, but you can see it here, Final Cut Camera. It works really well, and maybe they'll integrate it into this, but then it wouldn't be just a dedicated Pro Camera app. So maybe a separate camera app would make more sense just for photos, but maybe we'll see it, maybe we won't, but I would expect some updates as far as features. Now, when it comes to the iPhone Fold, of course, we're waiting for that. That will probably be in 2026, according to the recent leaks. But now the actual display sizes have been reiterated by TrendForce. Ming-Chi Kuo had previously mentioned details of the display sizes, but TrendForce has now said that the outer display of the folding iPhone will be just 5.5 inches, and the inside will be 7.8 inches. Maybe it will be more of a form factor like the original Pixel Fold. This is something I actually really appreciate form factor-wise, where it's a little bit wider, but either way, we'll have to wait and see what Apple settles on and then finally releases sometime next year if they are in fact releasing a folding device. But either way, after using folding devices, I really like this form factor and the latest Galaxy Z Fold 7. Both of them have sort of a really nice feel to them when you're using them. And it seems like Apple is really doubling down on having extra phones, and it looks like they could have up to 6 different iPhones next year as far as the model lineup goes. I would actually like to see them reduce it to maybe 2 or 3, but at this point we could see an iPhone 18e, an iPhone 18, an iPhone 18 Air, an iPhone 18 Pro, 18 Pro Max, and a foldable iPhone all released next year, but maybe staggered throughout the year. If they do release that many phones, hopefully they will stagger them similar to what Samsung does, where they have the S25 typically in January, and then a few months later they release the Fold. So that seems to make more sense and definitely would allow options for different buyers. But either way, I miss the days when we basically had an iPhone 4 and you got to choose between two different colors and everyone got the same thing. I thought that was sort of the best model when Steve Jobs was around, but they've decided to change it since then. Now later this year, we're also expected to get a new iPad Pro with an M5 chipset. The latest information says we should have basically a similar design, but we could have two cameras now. So instead of just having the camera here in the landscape mode, we could also have one for portrait mode as well. So it would be better when you're maybe on the phone using FaceTime or just recording in general. So I wouldn't expect a major update here. The M4 is plenty fast, and I don't know that I'll upgrade myself, as this is just super fast and I really have no issues on it. But if they do introduce an M5 and it has a couple cameras, maybe a few other updates, I'll definitely let you know. Now, we've been hearing about HomePods for quite some time, maybe a replacement for the HomePod Mini with a new HomePod Mini 2, and we've also been hearing about a HomePod with a display for some time now that was supposedly delayed. However, in recent iOS 26 Beta 4 updates, it seems Apple mistakenly made mention of such a device. There's a location-based setting with the words that say, "Your HomePod won't be able to show you the local weather, time, or respond to Siri's requests about your area." So based off of that information, it seems like they're still working on it, and we could see that maybe in the future, or Apple could cancel it if they decide it's not good enough or something they don't want to pursue. But either way, we should hopefully get some updates to HomePod soon, as it seems Apple doesn't really update them very often. And so that's everything for the weekly Apple news. I'm looking most forward to iOS 18.6 to get everyone on maybe a more stable version with more security. But other than that, of course, iOS 26 Beta 2 or Public Beta 2 and Beta 5 should be fairly soon. Let me know what you're looking most forward to this year in the comments below, and of course I'll link this wallpaper in the description like I normally do. If you haven't subscribed already though, please subscribe, and if you enjoyed the video, please give it a like. As always, thanks for watching. This is Aaron. I'll see you next time.